Okay, so Nasir, you are ready?
Yes.
Rudi, you are ready? Okay, so Nasir.
Ready? Yeah, no problem.
So Nasir.
Yeah. Welcome everybody. Welcome Rudi. Thank you for your time, and thank you for accepting our invitation. Welcome to all our friends, colleagues all over the world. Today we are introducing a special video conference. Usually we were doing only about athletics, and today we will try with Rudi to take you a little bit out from athletics, not too far, but a little bit out. So Rudi, we will talk about his experience as athlete, then as educator, as coach, as classifier, and at the end as president of International Parasport Organization. Rudi, he's one of my very old friends. We know each other from a very long time, I think, so.
Couple of years,
Yeah.
years, like a lot of you all.
Yeah, and he can talk in several languages. And the most important language that he will talk about today is Arabic. You know, a lot of words in Arabic. So I will leave the floor to Rudi to start his presentation. Good luck, Rudi. Yeah.
Just, yes, Rudi, just wait. I just mute everybody and then you will be able to start. Huh? That's why I mute everybody.
Who is the cook there? Who is the cook there?
And Rudi, unmute yourself.
Oh.
Okay. And Nasir, okay. So now, yeah, we can start. No, Rudi, unmute. Okay.
Okay.
No, no. It's again muted. Try to unmute, Rudi.
Theoretically, the micro should work.
It's working now.
It's okay now.
Okay, it's working.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So I think, hello to everybody. I think you gave me a very, very difficult task to talk about career. And maybe to disappoint Abdel Nasser, I will not talk in Arabic and stay in English because some words, apparently you don't use them in every language. So just a small and quick talk about, I'd say, the Paralympic pathway, my pathway. And I think it's difficult to talk or comparing the pathway I had and what people can do today. So next. So just to say, I was born on the 13th of November, 1952. And already the birds, they brought a nice thing. So a nice baby to my parents. Next. Hello?
Yeah, you can see it now?
Yeah, next.
It's here, 1958. You can see the screen?
Oh. Can you go to next slide?
Okay, wait. Let me do that again. No, you can see now, Rudi, this one?
Yep.
Okay. So here. Okay, and
Go to next one.
This one?
Okay, next one.
This one. This one.
Oh.
Yeah, this one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. So, and after 1 year, and so in 1953, I got polio. and went to the hospital. My parents put me in the hospital, stayed there several years. And in my first steps, I could make them in 1958. So already, as you see on the picture, I was a charming boy and already very, I would say, accompanied by a nice lady. Next. But really sports, I started when I was in college. As all my friends, my parents, I was lucky. And my parents put me in, let's say, what at that time called a normal school. And all my, let's say, school friends were able-bodied, no disability. So I tried to do sports with them. But at the end, I think it's also the case for a lot of people today. You cannot be good in every sport because we have limitations. But when you are young, I would say where you're limited, the less is in swimming. So starting in college and afterwards, when I went to the university, I started swimming. So coming from able-bodied sport and the Paralympic, I would say our movement still was in rehabilitation sport. I was one of the beginners who came from able-body in our sport and was maybe a little, I would not say I was better, but I had more opportunities to be more performant. So I started my competition in swimming in 1972. I did the first lanes, and of course, coming from able-body sport, I got the first medals. Next. So the year afterwards, I got my first international selection. And in that time, there was no choice. I went to Stoke Mandeville. And I really discovered in that time the ambience, the feeling, I would say, the movement of disabled sport in Stoke Mandeville. Next. After Stoke Mandeville, so my level was not too bad. I got my first international selection with the Belgian team. First games, 1976 in Toronto. No medal. I was 3-time fourth. Next.
Trying to move it, David.
Yeah, can we go on?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
After swimming, I'd say, because I would say swimming, it's a rather boring sport, I discovered athletics. That was in 1979. We created the team where I was living, and I discovered athletics, which was a lot more passionate. Next. In that time, we had more possibilities. The level was not as high as it is today. And we could do road races, track, field. We could participate in everything, even with a rather good level and still a good move and still smiling, even in the effort. Next. And medals at that time were easy to win, and you could easily shuffle them after a couple of years. Next. But the consecration of Paralympics, I think everybody, even today, is still aiming for this Paralympic medal. Having the first experience in Stoke Mandeville, which was, I would say, a bit disappointing from the level that we should have gone to the States, which due to financial reason didn't organize in 1984. And again, Stoke Mandeville was the opportunity for a lot of people to discover the games in '84. But at the end, and I would really say the consecration of a career is when you get this first gold medal in a stadium completely filled up, and it was in Seoul. I think the movement, our Paralympic movement, our Stoke Mandeville movement, really started for me, my experience in Seoul. Next.
There is no next. This is the last one. So I take the next slides.
Yep, next slide.
The next series of slides.
Oh, there is no other one. Oh, okay, sorry. So the point is, after Seoul, which was my first great experience, I got my disillusion, of course, because at the end, it's difficult to go on high level, because already in Seoul, the level increased considerably. And I think for a lot of people, the biggest games ever for, I would say, the 80s, 90s was Barcelona. And Barcelona really was, let's say, outstanding. The beginning of a new area and the end of an area, because we moved in Barcelona to the professionalism. And even if, and I say honestly, I was disqualified in the pentathlon because I crossed the line with the wheelchair in the 1500 meter, the last event, because I was second before the 1500, but I wanted to win. And sometimes, and maybe that's an experience of life, a gold medal is a target. But at the end, second one, it's also a great satisfaction as long as you know that the guy in front of you is also an outstanding athlete. So I would say that is a Paralympic pathway, but it's my pathway. And I think we cannot compare what's happening today compared to what passed in the beginning of our movement. Because I still say, I experienced the pathway from Stoke Mandeville Games as an athlete to the Paralympic Games. And the spirit of those two, I would say, kind of games is completely different. There is, in our time, there was an ambience. Today, we are looking for performance. But looking for performance, I think that will be the say and the object of second and third presentation. Suren?
Yes. Do you want me to
Yep.
change the slide? Okay.
Yep.
Okay, do that. So I take the one sports core here, huh? Is it?
No, I think we could go to the question because the sports career is more the next subject.
Oh, so
Maybe
you want the
I'm
questions?
sure.
Okay, let's see the questions then. So do you have any questions? I will unmute Nasir.
Up to you.
Yes.
Yes, my first question. If you have to compare your achievement in 1988 in Seoul as a para-athlete with the able-bodied athletes, what was the reaction of the community and the society regarding your achievement?
I think 88, it was the first games at the same place as the able-bodied ones. What I felt in that time was people were looking to us as disabled people. Disabled people doing sports. The big difference, if you're looking to Seoul and Barcelona, the big step was people were there encouraging a lot of people just to look at, okay, we were there. While if you went afterwards 4 years later to Barcelona people were looking to sportsmen. The big step, and that is what I call the big step from rehabilitation sport and sports was between 88 and 92, because the view of the people looking to our sports movement became completely different.
Thank you.
But Rudi, to what do you attribute that change of approach, a change of people approach towards the para people, to para athletes and para people in general?
In my opinion, it's also a question of the movement of the athletes and the perception of the athletes in the different countries themselves. From the other side, it was Spain, and especially Barcelona. It's a sports country. And I will not go back and say, or discriminate, let's say, Seoul in 88, but the feeling of the people towards, I would say, impaired people was completely different, and the perception was completely different. I also think, and that is one part, if you want to look to, let's say, a Paralympic pathway, people who are not aware of the efforts and sacrifices athletes are making, because, and I think that today it's not possible anymore. We made tremendous sacrifices in our job, family life, to reach a level for which in that time there was no money at all. We paid everything ourselves, our local team paid. And after, let's say, the perception between 88 and 92, money came in the sports. There were sponsors starting. And especially in Europe, the promotion of the games in Barcelona were tremendous, which was maybe not the case in 88.
Yeah. May I ask another question, Suren?
Yes, go ahead, Nasir.
Yeah. So based on what you mentioned here, so I think there is three big, let's say, big stations for the para athletics, which was Barcelona in 1992. The second step was between Beijing and London, and now we are living a new era of athletics. How you can what you can say about that? Is it a progress, or is it let's say elite sports coming back, coming on, or what is the situation now? If you have to compare between the three eras.
I think I was lucky in this way, and that's because in 93, I will come later on it, became an international classifier. So I could see the evolution of the games of our movement from 76, even 72 to today. And I would say there were different steps, because don't forget that after the, I would say, exciting Barcelona games, everybody, every Paralympic or impaired athlete had this disillusion in Atlanta. Don't forget the disillusion of Atlanta. And after Atlanta, everybody was aiming to better games. And we got these games again, which were excellent in Sydney. Then we moved up again to 2004, 2008. But 2008, it was Beijing with the Chinese, I would say, means which no country in the world has. We had marvelous games, but marvelous games who puts first on the showcase Chinese athletes. For me, the next step was London. London was outstanding, but outstanding why? Because we got this tremendous mediatization, which never happened before. When you see the means, which, and I think our English friends or British friends, I don't know exactly English, it's more limited than Great Britain friends, they had exceptional means. When I'm comparing the means Britain had compared, for instance, to the French athletes, it was 10 times, 20 times more. So it's clear that Paralympic Games became really a mean of promoting the integration, the social integration of disabled people, as well in sports, as well in the society. And I think only for this thing and the progress made, the mediatization, I think London 2012 was a milestone.
Thank you, Rudi. We have a question in the chat room. It says, even in 2020, some countries have more obstacles in the system in getting para-athletes to be involved in sports. What do you think are the essentials for the NPC to support them in their involvement in sport?
I don't really understand the question.
Okay, so it says that in the present situation, even now, there are obstacles to get para-athletes to be involved in sports. So what can NPCs do to encourage para-athletes to give them the support to be involved in sports?
I think it's, if you're coming to the today, and especially from the movement and the Paralympic evolution, I think we went from one global movement for impaired people to international federations, which are bringing athletes at an exceptional level, but specialized. Today, you rarely will find an athlete doing more than one sport. And I think every country today, if an athlete has a chance for medal or being in the first four and world ranking, they have means which allow the athlete to become exceptional or having an own team around him to perform what in the past was not possible. And I think that will go on, I hope it, at least to 2024, at least. But don't forget today, compared already the difficulties we will have and report to Tokyo in 2000, which should have taken place in 2020 and is reported already, that the world today is really realizing that means are limited. And it's clear Tokyo will try to organize games we are expecting. But from the other side, I see, and I'm listening, I'm hearing, that the means in the beginning allowed for Paris 2024 are not the same anymore, which were 1 year ago. Because today the world is facing problems, and that surely will report to us, which we never faced before. And I think we really have to be careful and focus on every organization we can do. And I think we really have to support the IOSDs to bring people, because they are offering games at a level which are financially livable, which I'm not sure that Paralympics financially can stay at the level they are today.
That's an interesting challenge. So Claudia asks here, when are we going to consider masters for athletics, for para-athletics?
Sorry?
Masters in the para-athletic movement.
Masters.
Yes, veteran.
Yeah, veteran masters. You know, if you're looking to, it's one of the topics we have in IWAS. So, and I'm a master since a long time. But at the end, you know, if you're an athlete and you are a competitor, you don't look to the age. You want to win. I'm still as tremendous respect for athletes, and I can say Hans Frey and Van Dijk, you know, people which are outstanding. And age has no, okay, you are starting to be less performant. But at the end, and I think every Paralympian always should remember that being performant, for me, it's 4 parts. You need to good physical ability, that's sure. But you need a good coach. And at the end, you still need the motivation, the passion. And at the end, you still have to be I would say, the possibility to be foolish. Because you can be an excellent athlete. If the last 100 meters, you're not able to exceed your mind, to ignore the pain you have, because, you know, the last 100 meters, you have this, or the last instance of your performance, you have to be above what you are able to do. And that is for me. So for me, there is no masters. We can organize, I think, games, and I think it's one of the topics of my last presentation. We are offering a pathway. And I think every athlete, outstanding athlete in the world, has an experience which you cannot fully transfer to the new ones. But I still have admiring, and I think Abdel Nasser, Suren, you know very well, and Nesta, Thomas. When I see the Thai team, when I see people like outstanding athletes, which have the chance of a medal, a gold medal, tremendous money to win, who sacrificing their chance for their teammate and bringing the youngsters to a level which a lot of countries are today ignoring. And that is, say, the masters is not making their competition. The masters should accompany, you know, accompany the youngsters on their pathway to the Paralympic level.
Wow, that's powerful words, Rudi. So we have a question. Thanks for that, Rudi. We have a question from Leila. She is very impressed by your presentation, and she wants to know, why did you start by choosing swimming? Was it because it was your favorite activity, or it was according to your performance? Why not start with athletics itself from the beginning?
In sport?
Yes. Your personal experience, huh? For you.
Personality or sports career?
Yeah, your sports career. Why did you start with swimming and not athletics? Was it because of the performance, or what motivated you to start with swimming?
I think it's, and I always say, I'll give you an example. Today, which in our times, we did not have spina bifida. Spina bifida you bring a youngster to competition, 8 to 10 years, in what sport you would bring them? If he has spina bifida, he has no back muscles, a real spina bifida. So if you're bringing him to basketball, he will have a tremendous scoliosis. If you're bringing him to athletics, he don't have the strength exactly the same. The back will, and the position in the chair will cause a tremendous scoliosis. I think we have, and that's really one of the points of the IPC code. We have to focus on athletes and their health. And I think if you bring an athlete to swimming, what you're developing in swimming is, first of all, the use of all your muscles you're able to use. The second thing is you're increasing your lung capacity, which today in a lot of sports they are trying to find by other means, which are not allowed. But if you're getting a lung capacity of 7 liters, you can go afterwards in any sport where you need resistance and, I would say, a good blood circulation. So I always say, and even today in my team, every athlete, young athlete coming in the team, I'm saying, I'm bringing him in swimming and really say no basketball before, according to the disability, 14 years, and then 16, 17, because I'm bringing him to athletics or field or track or handbike.
You're right. There's another question from Leila. She says, now you have, in those times when you started, you had no sponsorship equipments for you to be able to start your sports. So what triggered you to make your breakthrough? How did you make your breakthrough in your career?
The breakthrough to stop in my career.
How did you, because Leila thinks that sponsorship at that time, even now, sponsorship is important for an athlete to progress, right? And how did you, in those times, were you able to start your career and develop your career there without those sponsorship?
I don't think sponsorship is necessary to become a good athlete. Today, the problem is that there are more and more competitions. You cannot take on your personal budget anymore if you're doing athletics, just to participate to the Grand Prix. A lot of countries are taking in charge. Other people have to find sponsors to make all these trips. But at the end, and I'm still coming back on the previous time, we were good, maybe outstanding. And I think we were outstanding because people who are still competing today, who had the passion to compete like Frey, they are still present in the time where our sponsorship. But they started in a time where there was no sponsorship. So I cannot believe that an excellent and outstanding athlete needs sponsorship, because Heinz Frey and Van Dijk, they were already there before the sponsorship was there. Today, it's a need. And I think it's more a need from the people around the athletes than for the athlete themselves. Because, as I told a couple of minutes ago,
Rudi,
for me, it's
Rudi,
a question of money. It's a question of passion.
Rudi is going to stop now. So we are going to, we continue at the next session. We reconnect on the same link. We reconnect on the same link immediately. And here you go. Okay, let's go. Good now.
You're hearing?
Yes.
Okay.
Fine.
So just a question of coming back on the last point of money. I think the only point is that today we get in a professional sport. And when you are professionally, you need to pay the people around the athlete, which are coaches, the medical, and I would say the needs today are different than 10, 15 years, 20 years ago.
Yes, so true. So I start the screen for the next presentation. Ready? Yep. Okay. So
Next
it's
one.
sport experience. This. Yep, you can see Rudy?
No, it's
Yeah.
okay. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay, as I told, so in my career, a lot of steps. A lot of steps due to the life. So go on the next one. As explained, I did swimming from 72 to 77. Next. Played wheelchair basketball, started in 75 with Lyon. Had a couple of selections with the Belgian team. And I'm still playing basketball as a leisure today. Next. Athletics. Athletics became a passion. I started in 79 and I'm still trying to finish some road races. I stopped doing field because I don't have the same strength anymore and not the same, okay? But for me, the most interesting sports and passionate sports, the feeling, the ambience was athletics because you really could share your passion with the mates. Next. So when I stopped after Barcelona 92, I had opportunity and I really want to thank John Burke and Chris Groen for the opportunity they offered me when classification moved from medical to functional. I have no clue, and I think all of you know that I have no clue about medical. But I had some experience. I knew exactly what you could do with the means you had. And I think the idea of going to a functional classification made a tremendous step in our sports in athletics. At the end, maybe medical people will feel a bit frustrated. But from my experience, and sorry to tell that, it was easier to cheat a medical guy than to cheat, how do you call it?
Technical.
Because automatically, and I think Abdel Nasser, just to look at him, if he is blaming or joking with my Arabic, he knows exactly also what an athlete can do with the means he had. And when I started, I had this opportunity, the first IPC World Championships, and it were first IPC ones. It was in the Olympia Stadium in Berlin, where I made my first steps as a classifier. And in that time, I still was an ISMGF classifier. Nobody talked about physically impaired classifier. I just was a classifier for wheelchairs. Next.
Yeah.
My first experience as physically impaired classifier was in 2004 with a nice team, nice dressed. But for me, it also was another opportunity. And I think a lot of you made the same experience, who had the same aim. My main target as classifier in athletics in Athens in 2004 was not only to be the classifier there. Since a couple of years in my local team, I started to coaching some athletes who became good. And for one of them, it was the first international selection at the Games. So for me, it was not only to be classifier, it was also for me the opportunity to be with an athlete, to make him, let's say, smoothen the experience of an international, let's say, to be present at the Games. And that was for me in 2004, one of the big things beside the classifier, being present with athlete you schooled, you brought to a Paralympic level. And I think as classifier, as coach, my biggest satisfaction was 2012 in London, where from my local team, we had 3 athletes in 3 different sports present at the Games. And I think if you're coming from grassroots, and you can bring athlete to such a level, you're extremely satisfied. Next. And of course, my career did not stop there as a classifier. When I was elected at the French board in 2005, they sent me to be present at the General Assembly of IWAS. And of course, the president of the French Federation said, "Oh, Rudi, you should present you at IWAS." I said, and another thing, I'm a guy on the field. I like the field. I don't like meetings. I want to be on the field. But it was an opportunity to be in Rio. At the same time, I did some classification, and I never had the expectation to be elected in the board. The board of the movement in which I start, and for me, that was heaven. So for me, as a little grown up athlete, becoming in the board of IWAS, for me, it was not possible. And no, I was elected. And why I was elected, that also is one of the topics of the next subject in 30 minutes. Next one. Other side.
I need to get the other one, okay.
Yeah, should be the last one. Oh yeah,
And another one? I see.
Yeah, that's the next, because the file was too big to be sent in one global one.
So here, this one we did. This one. So
Yeah,
this one.
next. Yeah, next. Okay. And then, of course, in IWAS, there was this function of representation. And, you know, as an athlete, I never saw that too. And my first official representation to represent the president, Paul de Pace, was to go in Oita in 2007, where I had to not only talk in Arabic, but I had to talk in Japanese. So, and you see that guy just behind me, he was correcting the pronunciation of my Japanese. But the most interesting thing, and that's also why I got the respect of the Japanese, was that during the race, we had the dinner with the governor of Oita, some important people, sponsors, and they asked me the pronostic of the race. And I gave them the 3 names. And I was lucky that day because at the end of the race, the 3 names I gave were the 3 first of the race. And I still remember the president of the Japanese Federation said, "Who know them?" He said, "Because I'm on the field with them. And if you want to know sports, you have to be on the field sometime." And I think that's also the success of your organization, because a lot of you, I would say nearly all of you, are meeting on the field, and we have respect for each other. Next. Then, of course, 2012 I had to choose. IPC wanted to me as a classifier, but one of my friends was chef de mission, and his English was not really good, like a good Frenchman. Sometimes the English language is not the most adequate, the most strongest part in their life. And I said, okay, you see the guy in the motorized wheelchair, my friend Jean-Paul, and I choose to be assistant to Jean-Paul, which was a choice. But it was also an experience, because even today, some people of the French team are still blaming me because I had the function to go with the teams to the classification. And one of the athletes in wheelchair rugby did not show exactly what he could do. And I saw the attitude of the classifier. And I pushed my athlete, said, play the game because you will out. And at the end, the athlete didn't play the game, and he was put out of the team and not allowed to participate. And even today, I said to that athlete, I still remember, and even today, the people didn't forget me. You are a cheater because you did not only cheat the system, you penalized the team. And I think when you're doing a sport, which is also a big experience, you can be an excellent athlete, but if you're in a team sport, sometimes you have to drop down your own ambitions to be just part of the team, to get out the best for your team. Next. And then, of course, why you invited me today was 2017. And the election as president of IWAS in Villarreal de Santo Antonio, which for me, it's not the end of a career, but it's just the start of a new one. Because you are realizing not only what has been done, but you're really realizing what still have to be done. And how the movement can go forward. And then you know exactly the movement. If you want to bring the movement forward, it's not the question of the president. It's the question of the team. The people with who you will make the future. That's all. There's no next one.
So let's see if we have any questions. Nasir, do you have any questions?
There is already one question, 2, 3 on the chat. I will try to, yeah. One question from the first session. It was, what do you think about seated throws? Are we impeding athletes to develop their whole capacities? And also, with the strict rules, would you propose any amendment? It's purely technical.
Seated throws. I think seated throws, it's a problem since the 70s. Even in Toronto, I saw the seated throws, and just to give you the example, and a lot of ITOs will laugh with what I'm telling you. When I started, it was in 79, it was not allowed to strap. Just to go back to the origin. The problem was that it was not allowed to strap, and it was not allowed to take advantage of, let's say, physical advantage. So when somebody, to keep the balance, moved up the leg, you got a red flag because you were taking advantage, because your feet were lifting. So what did the clever people? And I say I was included in those. I just put hooks on the shoes. We could lift the legs without problem. But when you're throwing a javelin or a shot put and you're going backwards, you're not lifting the legs anymore. You're having the advantage of contracting the legs, the knees, which give you more strength. And when 3 years later, Chris Cohn, we had a technical meeting, we're starting about getting the field events more attractive. I just told Chris, let them strap. They will go further. I said, strapping, why? I said, because allow the people use the means they have in the same fair way. So if today you are talking about field events and the seated throws, of course, you cannot lift. But we all know that in the same sports class, from the range can be very different. And to get a more fairness between the lower part of that class and the higher part of that class, you're strapping them. So people who have good or less good or no force in the leg, all of them are at the same level because they're strapped. At the end, that's a question of classification. But in my mind, there is no classification between close cooperation between the ITOs. Because at the end, the ITOs are still on the field. And I think if we want to progress a more attractive field, we should allow means which are available for all athletes, but always in respect to the rules and the fairness of the classification. And I think it's one of the proposals I made to WPA. It's to have a more closing working together between today the International Technical Office, which is also classifiers, and test those proposals on games of which the result has not the same importance as on the Paralympic Games.
Okay. That's one, nothing, but another one?
Yes, I would like to ask Rudi about what was the reaction from your teammates when you moved from athlete to, let's say, to managing or to classifier duties, and they still, maybe some of them at that time still athletes, and you become responsible in charge of some different duties. What was their reaction?
I think it was a positive reaction because I only did it when my international career was finished. So for me, there was no, even if I was competing or still on the field, there was no conflict of interest. I would say it in that way. There was no conflict of interest. From the other side, the reaction of a lot of athletes, a lot of coaches were extremely positive because people said, now we have somebody which know what sport is, what we can do, what is allowed, and you know exactly who and where are the cheaters. So, oops.
You are here, Rudi. You can continue.
I'm still here.
Yeah.
I don't see me anymore. Okay. So, and that was really, I still have people were competing with me, like Belgians and Dutch people, and I really have positive reactions about that thing.
Thank you, Rudi. I'm trying to understand that you were in both national teams, Belgium and France. Can you just clarify this situation to our friends and colleagues?
But just the fact of, I think a couple of you know that Stoke Mandeville changed my life. In my second selection, I met a French lady over there who became my wife. And as she had more difficulties to learn Flemish than for me, making me understandable in French, so I moved to France. So I got the French nationality through the wedding, and I moved to the French team after the Paralympics in '76. So I became French in '77, and I was so that's the story behind.
So as athlete, and then you become later as classifier. I think it was a good opportunity to make athlete in comfortable situation when they come to classification, or it was the opposite?
What?
You were athlete before, and then you become classifier, okay? This situation makes athletes comfortable, or the opposite? They were uncomfortable because they cannot cheat.
It's not a question of cheating.
Yeah.
I think it's, how to explain? You know, if you in life, you are fair and you have nothing to reproach, you have not to be afraid, because, you know, in sports, it's a question of competition.
Yeah.
And I still have, in remembering with Peter van der Vliet, I fully allow that an athlete is trying to cheat the classifier. I have no problem with that. The classifier has to know what he has to do. He has to know his job, like exactly an ITO. So if an athlete is cheating, I think he knows exactly, we had to know exactly up to what he can go. We are comprehensive. I'm comprehensive. And when I see exactly when an athlete is not showing what he really can, I just make a friendly reminder. And I think you know very well that I can change a bit more my diplomat way of talking to some athletes, which afterwards they know exactly what they have to do, because otherwise they will not compete. The other point is that if you're coming from an athlete to classifier, you understand a lot of things which are possible or which are not possible. And especially when you have incomplete legions, I think it's very important to know exactly what an athlete can do and what he not can do to have a fair competition. And it's not because an athlete is good that he is badly classified. It's just because he is a good athlete. Classification has nothing to do with performances. It's a statement.
Thank you.
Interesting. We have a question here which says that, do you think that in the present time, do the athletes with special needs have a possibility to express themselves?
To what? Get to sport?
Express themselves as participants as possible.
It's clear if today, in most of the countries, I would say in nearly all countries, today, athletes or every federation has a center. In some countries, it's even by region. And especially if you look to the performances of the big countries like China, Russia, they have sports centers in every region where they have, let's say, a multitude of athletes which are bringing themselves at the level, because a performance, really this outstanding times and distances, is because your people are pushing you up to the limit. And if during the training you can have athletes, even if you don't have the same possibility, but you can bring or train together, share your experience, I think it's a benefit for the sport and for the athlete to become more performant. And I saw the organization in Russia last year, and it's tremendous, it's marvelous. I didn't have the opportunity to see that in China, but also Mexico. I still was asking why the Mexicans has excellent track athletes, because they are training together. They have this training center where they can find each other regularly and where they are training together, pushing each other, because each athlete sometimes had a bad day. But if in that day you're just following the one who is better, who has a better day, but you're improving your possibilities. And it's one of the most important things of being in a sports center. The other point, with the negative side, is being in a sports center, you are only focused on sport. And at the end, you can get tired of the sport. You're reducing your career because at the end, you're getting tired of sport, which you don't have when you have regular life, you're living still in family, with your parents, or in a regular life. I think it's a choice. But today, a lot of countries are just looking at short term to get the best out of an athlete in a very short period.
Very interesting. So how would you recommend an athlete from a country like from an African country, which is in a developing country, developing economies? What would be the opportunities for these athletes to para athletes to enter system or to be able to achieve high level?
It's really clearly, I think, in the last topping ads, it's really clear, let's say, what to do. Today, not everybody had the same opportunity or the same look in life. I would say look in life. I still remember, and I was meeting in Isfahan, where they asked me to be educator. We had a meeting there. And there was an outstanding athlete. I think most of you know him. He became a discus thrower because he has dysmelia on the legs, so very short legs, but tremendous, tremendous arm, more than 2 meters 40 arm width from one side to the other side. And I still remember asking to his coach, why that athlete? Put him in a wheelchair. He will be one of the best track athletes in the world. And the coach said, yes, but here we don't have the means and we cannot invest millions in just one athlete. So the first thing, if you say an African athlete, I would say an athlete in a less developed country, look where he can explode. If the country don't has tracks, don't offer him track, you can have one athlete, but at the end, you even will have lack of competition, lack of competitors against him to promote. But in African athletes, I had a lot of friends, African athletes, let's say, not South African, because we are extremely good in track, but we're tremendous good field athletes. Kenya, Egypt, Senegal, Morocco, They had tremendous, tremendous good field athletes. So why, I would say, offer them the opportunity where they can explode because they don't have the means, or, and that is one of the points what you, in the next one, give him the means to go to another country where he can explode in the event he would like. But at the end, don't forget you are cutting him from his roots.
That's very powerful, Rudi. Nastia, do you have any questions? I see there's one question in the chat room, but I'll keep that for the last session because it concerns more the managing of institutions. So do you have any questions?
No, thank you.
Okay, Rudi, we have 6 minutes, so we'll stop the third session already, and then you can continue. We'll have a longer time for the questions afterwards.
No problem.
Okay. Chairman of an international or sports organization.
So, and I added here, I was. Because the International Sports Organization, of which I'm the president, is IWAS. And I say honestly, I never could have imagined. So if you go to the next slide, my first experience I showed you was in swimming in '73. I don't know if the swimming pool still exists, but it's a typical image when the medal ceremony in Stoke Mandeville. Nothing to see anymore with what's happening today.
Mm.
So next one. And then, of course, there were the elections in Rio, where I became member of the board. And I told you, being member of the board, I could not imagine, but at the end, sharing, discussing, sharing the experience, you're learning what is done, what's happening, and how you could improve. And I would say, we come later on the next slide. I became a president, yes. But, and that's the next one. The fact was that I was retired from my job. I had some spare time, not a lot, but I really wanted to give back to the movement what I got from the movement. Because if I know you all, most of you, it's thanks to the movement, because otherwise we never should have met each other. We never would have appreciated each other. I think in my life, I was lucky. I had the opportunity to be at the right time, at the right place, and with the right people. And I still remember my boss telling, when I did my job, yeah, but you are going quick. Where some people need 2 days, you're doing it in 1 day. I said, yes, because that day I can use to meet other people, to make other experiences. But to become a president, it's clear that I never would have been a president without my regular presence on the playground as an athlete, as a classifier. Because I think even if I'm here today, it's because you trust me. And you all, the member nations, by my presence on the ground, they know me, that they can trust, and they supported my nomination. Next. But all of this, you know, you can say and write what you want, it's not sufficient. To become a president in a sports organization, you need this presentation. You need to give your vision. And especially when you see what happened, how our movement went forward, I think to become president or taking responsibility to become a president in a sports organization like ours, you needed a vision. The vision, you can have, you make a lobbying. We all know, started lobbying. And Abdel Nasser know that how to do very, very well. The vision has to be shared and supported by the member nations. But at the end, the vision has to contribute to the development of the organization. And at the end, as we are part of the Paralympic movement, we all have to, our vision has to contribute as well to the growth of the global Paralympic movement. Next.
No, next we will do the next one at the beginning of the next session. So we'll immediately we go to the next session, follow the same link, and we will see you in 1 minute time.
Okay. Jack, tu vas te coucher. Alors, tes passages.
And we mute everybody. Okay, Rudi, unmute yourself.
Yep, done.
Okay, that's good. So I just share the screen where we were here. We were. Yeah, share. Okay, Rudi, you can talk.
Okay, the next one, I think we were at the vision. Yep.
Yeah.
So it's clear that since 2005 up to 2017, with the board of IWAS, we definitely came to a vision which we shared, which was the continuous support in paving the pathway for athletes with physical impairment from grassroots, the national level, to the Paralympic consecration. The second point was that strengthen the two IWAS sports and support new sports on their pathway to become an international federation, which is not a lot when you see it on a paper, which is a tremendous job when you're facing it in reality. Go to the next one. So if you're detailing the vision, a lot of points are coming out. And one of those points is the physically impaired athletes. We all know that at the time being, the Paralympic movement is composed by three groups of impairments: the visual, governed by IPSA, intellectual, governed by Virtus, and the physical by CP ISRA and IWAS. And it's clear that due to our history, our common impairment, we are looking to the best possible collaboration with CP ISRA and IWAS to get our athletes in a games program which is fitting in that impairment. So the next one. Of course, as we mentioned a couple of minutes ago, when we were talking about African athletes, the pathway. Pathway is also two different things. You have the support, because if we're talking about some less developed countries, Middle Africa, Southern America, Middle America, athletes don't have the equal chances to reach the Paralympic level. We have to face that, because the opportunities are challenged, heavily influenced by the region, the culture, and their means, the finances. And I think in IWAS, I will come one of the last slide on that, we try to settle regional offices. We have one in Sharjah. We have partners. There is IPC Agitos, and we are trying to contribute to reduce those impacts for these athletes, which in the beginning don't have the same opportunities or chances. Next. And then, of course, the pathway from grassroots to Paralympics. As mentioned, 2012, the Paralympic Games became a showcase. The mediatization pushed the overall performances of our athletes to an outstanding level. Levels we never should have reached 20 years ago. But this also means that just jumping from a national level to the Paralympic level, it's not possible anymore. And that's also IWAS 2-hour games program, the IWAS Junior World Games. We are offering opportunities to close this gap, to bridge the performances, and getting at the same time international classification by the relevant international federation, always in respect and the best interest for the athletes. Next. Of course, there is the strength of the two IWAS sports. IWAS is governing wheelchair fencing and power chair hockey. For both, we are supporting the managing teams in their competition program and their development. Next. And then, of course, there is the new support of new sports. Today, each sport aims to become Paralympic. But the Paralympic sports is still limited, and both the non-Paralympic or new sports, they are looking to support in their development. And our office, I think we had the excellent idea brought up by Charmaine, to putting in place Goodman Games, which will be only reserved to non-Paralympic sports. Next. But as I told you, the realization of a vision is not the question of a president. A good manager has to be surrounded by the people, excellent people, which are doing an excellent job in their opportunity. And I say, I do take this opportunity to thank the office, Charmaine, Aileen, Lucy, Tamara, and Harry, for the professional accomplishment of their job, the ideas, and I would say the advance they are taking, even if sometimes we still have the impression we could do more. But it's not easy to do more. Let's already realize what we can do. And of course, realization is not only possible also with the support of the member of the board and the member nations. A great team was elected in 2017. And I'm happy to work with them because all of them on their field, they are experts. Next one. So I would thank them and taking the opportunity, just say thanks. Finished for me.
Wow.
For the question.
Everybody was just like listening to say, wow. Thank you, Rudi. That was absolutely brilliant. Let me see if I can see if we have some questions. Else I would just open the floor to everybody who wants to do live questions. There's no question in the chat room. Do you, Nasir, you have any questions? We had one question in the previous session which said, which asked the fact that is it important to have people with knowledge of the field like you in the managing committee of an international sports federation? Does that help to have a better understanding about, say, the technical rules or the technicalities of the sport?
I would say it's not necessary for a president. As I told, governing a sports organization, it's a team. If you have a good president and you have somebody besides you who has the knowledge of what's happening on the playground, I think we can have the same result and the same targets. I think with Paul, he was a good president, even if he was not aware what was happening on the field in athletics. But also he had his vision to go forward. From the other side, and I think we have that for the 4 IOSDs, the continuity between the elections is the CEO. So, and I think it's in every organization. President may change, but the continuity is ensured by the office of the CEO.
Oh, that's great. So, Nasir, do you have any questions? No? If not, I will just... Yep.
My question to Rudi, certainly you got a chance to move from athlete to chairing an international sports organization. What will be your advice for those who didn't get this chance and how they can contribute to give back to the parasport what they got from it?
Personally, I think it's a question more that as a sports career is shorter and you're pushing to performance, less and less people are interested to go in the national movement. Once their career as an athlete is finished, they are just disappearing. I made that experience, and even last weekend in France, for 20 places in the board, there were only 21 candidates, of which 8 women. And as they need a parity, all women were automatically elected, which at the end is not good for the movement, because people are elected because there's nobody else. They are sometimes, they're coming in the movement, I would say, especially in France. With the games in 2024, I was expecting a massive candidates because you're going in a showcase. And at the end, it was not the case. And we definitely will have in the next board meeting this question, why there are not more people involved on the national level, and even on the regional level. I think I still remember, and I didn't put the picture on one of the slides, but when we will go back to the Stoke Mandeville times, there was the beer tent, where in the evening after the competition, people could talk smoothly with each other, share experience, go back to their countries what they learned. Today, athletes are doing their competition, coming to the car room, disappearing immediately event, and then back to the hotel. There is no global, except for the Paralympics, and even in the Paralympic, this is disappearing. There is no global hotel social event anymore where people can find each other. I'm saying honestly, why I continued was to see back my friends. I was happy as a classifier to shake hands, to go to the friends who still were competing, because I was happy to see them again. If you don't share your passion, then you don't go on in the movement, because there's nothing to share.
Powerful words, Rudi. Nasir, you have a question? Any other questions?
There is questions in the chat. I will let you shoot them, please.
It's a long question. I don't know how we can tackle that. Rudi, as classifier with good and old experience, do you think that the decision to abolish the previous category 58 of field competitions and integrate it in the category 67 within the same weights of tools is devoid of this category, which led to the departure of a large number of players from the category 57 athletics games? And then we can do the rest afterwards. If we do the first part first, what is your opinion about that?
I think classification is, first of all, especially since London is a showcase, and when you go to classification, people have to understand classification. I think as a spectator, and you're sitting, and you see some discrepancies between athletes, you said, oh, what is the disability that guy has? At the same time, if you go to your government and say we want the prize money for a Paralympic medal, and then you have how much? 20 people who are winning at 100 meter, while in able-body you only have one. So you have to, I would say, and I'm really in favor of this, try to find a solution to combine, to reduce the number of classes, to make our events attractive, to get more athletes in the same event, and at the same time keeping an attractive performance. 57, 58, 58 never should have existed, because all those athletes can stand. What happened is that the class for amputees came extremely, extremely high leveled. But from the other side, the difference, and I know the technicians between you, if you had the disability on both sides or alternative between hand and leg, even if you have the same class, the means you have to reach the performance is not the same. If you discus, you need the opposite. If you're right-handed, you need a good left arm. So people went from standing to sitting because the impact of the lower leg was less important. And of course, then we came how to make the difference between the left leg and the right leg in such event. So strap them. But once you are strapped, where is the difference between an athlete with one good leg and an athlete with 1.5 good leg? There's no difference anymore. So you can combine these classes, keeping at the end a fair event.
That's very interesting. We have a comment. It's a comment from Lorraine from Australia. Thank you, Rudi, for sharing your life as an Paralympian. I hope everyone has experienced your wicked sense of humor like I have. So what I'll do now is I just unmute all the participants. I'll give the possibility to each of you to unmute yourself and to see to make any comments that you want. Rudi, unmute yourself, and anyone who Rudi, yeah, unmute yourself, please. Okay, anyone who has a question can ask directly. Just unmute yourself, present yourself, and ask Rudi your question. Seems there is Nasir.
Okay, I just want to ask a question. I don't know if you're hearing me.
Yes, we are.
Okay, I'm Commodore Nisiama from Nigeria, better known as Oscar. I asked a question earlier on, but it wasn't taken in the first section. I was trying to find out what are the pathways to becoming, for technical officials already in the normal world athletics field, to graduate into para-athletics officiating. Is there a pathway that one can follow so that one can become like Nasir, like my good friend, Okri? Is there a pathway that can be followed?
There is, but I would say there was a pathway. And I think Suren or Abdel Nasser can, for an ITO especially, better answer than I can do. For the classifier, it's different because for the moment, the full classification in nearly all sports are put in question. IPC is working a tremendous work behind to reevaluate the classification system in most of the sports, and why they put in standby the pathway to become a classifier. But for ITOs, technical officer on the field, that pathway is still existing as far as I know. And I think Suren or Abdel Nasser can answer or easily than I do.
Thank you very much. Suren, it's over to you.
Yeah, I mean, let me just tell me the experience that we had from the pathway as far as the ITOs are concerned. We, at one point in time, a few years ago, we were invited, the ITOs of IWF were invited by the IPC then to see if we were interested to join the Paralympic movement as an ITO. Of course, we had to do an exam because there are particularities with regards to the rules for the Paralympic movement. So we did an exam, and those who passed the exams, they integrated the pool of ITOs at that level. And there is still a pathway for those technical officials who want to join the next level of ITO. There is an exam, there is a procedure where you need to apply with IPC and World Paralympic para-athletics. So I can put you into contact with those people if you are interested to follow that pathway. It is open. The pathway is here.
Okay. In addition, why I actually asked the question, in my country, for example, we hardly have anybody that is qualified, and we have a lot of para-athletes, and most times we just try to do what we can. And it will be good for a big country like Nigeria to actually have people that have the pure knowledge and are certified and qualified to run the para-athletics officiating.
Okay, Oscar, what I'll do, I'll contact Tarek and Waze. I will see if there is a possibility that courses can be organized, of course, after the pandemic, to see if we can organize courses for Africa technical officials and create that pathway there.
All right, thank you very much.
No problem. So, Snoopy, you had a question?
Yeah. Any difficult situation as you as a classifier, you're facing classifiers because there are so many classes. Some of the athletes may not be wanted to be classified in one class, and they want to be in other classes. Do you have any type of situation like that? And how do you deal with that?
The way to become a classifier.
Yeah.
No, rather the question is, Rudi, that some athletes they're not satisfied with the classification that has been in which they have been classified. So how do you deal with that? They may think that they are in another class, and so how do you tackle that?
Athletes which are not classified?
Who are not satisfied with their classification. Let's put it like this.
You know, when an athlete has no chance to win a gold medal, he never is satisfied and still complaining about his competitors about their classification, or he is not in the right class. I think, and I really say, the level of classification WPA has is excellent. Of course, there are always difficult cases. And from the other side, I may be sorry to say it in this way, but from the beginning, I'm more and more experiencing countries trying to get, from the beginning, when the athlete is appearing, to get him in a lower class than he really is. And of course, I think the system of classification is fair and good, because having at the same time a medical assessment, the technical guy, so I'm doing nothing, I'm just observing. And then don't forget, everybody knows, every country knows, every country has classifiers. They know exactly what the classifier will ask you to perform during that assessment. And I can say honestly, yes, some countries are training on those movements which we have to assess, because they knew exactly that in that class it's not possible, though I should not do it, or I cannot do it. But the good classifier, and I say most of my colleagues are good classifiers, just put that athlete, if you are not sure, asking to a movement which is not programmed. Make him just a movement which, okay, put him in an unforeseen situation, and he will be lost. And automatically, he will use what he can use. And then, of course, even if today it's extremely difficult, if you have seated throws, to observe an athlete really what they can do. I think for me, the most important thing today is the physical assessment during classification. And I say honestly, I don't believe a lot of athletes are not in the right class. But of course, you still have the spectrum in one sports class, from the lower to the upper end. And it's clear, it's some people, they are disadvantaged compared to others. But there's no other solution today.
Thank you, Rudi. That answers your question, Snoopy?
Yes.
Anyone wants to intervene? No? Nasir, any questions?
Yes. back to your pathway till today. What would you like to, if you have the chance to come back to the past, which part of your life is more interesting, as athlete or as classifier or as, let's say, as you are now president of the IWAS?
I think, no, it's a very easy answer. First of all, the watch, you never put it back. So, and I'm really extremely satisfied with the career.
Okay, you can continue, Rudi.
Yeah. So it's really, I think every period in your life is passionate. Even if beside the sport, I had a passionate life. And maybe some people are telling I had 3 lives or 4 lives. Yes. But at the end, it's, you know, if I would have just been an athlete, maybe the perception of I would have from you would be completely different, because I appreciate you as a coach, as an ITO. But if I would be an athlete, my perception of you would be completely different, because you would have flagged me off because I was lifting. So you would not have been my friend. So I think it's in every period of your life, you're making friends because you are sitting in a different position. And at the end, you're appreciating what others are doing and what others are bringing for the same movement for which you have the passion. And I think I still have a lot of things to do. So it's, but of course, if I would put the clock back, I still remember the first games in Sharjah. Maybe I would have accepted your proposal to marry there.
Yeah, thank you, Rudi.
I don't see any other questions. So what I do, so before Abeele Nasser concludes, I would like to thank Rudi. And if Rudi, if you have anything to add as a conclusion.
No, it's the first time I have to share my experience as an athlete and my pathway as an athlete. I'm not used to do that because I don't like, you know, to go backwards. Still forget, I always say, Confucius is telling, if you want to see where you're going to, don't put a lantern in your back. So I'm more looking on what I'm going to do than on the things I did. So anyway, I would take the opportunity to thank all of you, because most of them, I know them more physically than just beside a screen. And I hope that after this difficult time of COVID, we will have the pleasure to meet us all again.
Thank you, Rudi. So before I ask Abeele Nasser to close the session, just 2 announcements. Next week we'll be having Ralph Muchbani, who is a German coach. He will talk about the challenge of coaches for coaching in the COVID-19 pandemics and how we move forward from there. And the following week, Imre Matrahazi will come to talk about the rule changes on the 24th and how, give an overview of the rule changes, either the World Athletics rule changes on the 24th. So Nasser, yeah, Nasser.
Thank you, Rudi. Thank you for your time. I think you will need more intensive courses in Arabic if you want to be married here in Sharjah next time when we will have the games. Yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy to see all of you today, and hope we will keep in touch for the next and coming video conferences with my colleagues, Surin, Okri, and the man who is behind the scene. I will name Zizou, who is doing all this great job by doing the invitations and also recording all our video conferences and put them on Facebook and our YouTube channel. Thank you, Zizou. Thank you, Sure, and thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Rudi, and everybody. We see you all next week, and stay safe and take care.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much for all. Bye-bye. Mr. Rudi, thank you, Abdel Nasser. Thank you all. We are enjoyed.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rudi.
See you. Bye, Leila.
Thank you, Rudi. It's a pleasure to see you. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye. شكرا أستاذ عبد الناصر. جزاك الله خير. Thank you very much, Mr. Abdel Nasser, because you give us the opportunity to follow very important conference, and it's a pleasure to refresh our knowledge and to be better and better. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Merci.
Bye. Bye.
Bye. Thank you very much.